What's up? This is The Real Deal with another video. This video is about the great migration of the African American. You ever wonder, or some of you young people ever asked your grandmother where she's from? Or grandpa where he's from? More than likely, he's from down south. And I don't care what demographic of the country that you're in, whether it's the East Coast, or West Coast, or the Northwest, or the Midwest. More than likely, your grandma and grandpa is from down south. Because you have to understand, the slave states, which is Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, those were slave states. Tennessee was kind of like a neutral. Tennessee and Kentucky was basically kind of a neutral state, far as with slavery. They had slavery, but they didn't depend on slavery like Louisiana all the way down to Georgia. You know what I'm saying? So that's where most of our people are from. Now, when you talk about the East Coast, a lot of the grandparents on the East Coast that's in, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Connecticut, all the way up to Boston, more than likely, they started out North Carolina, South Carolina, the Virginias, Georgia, and Florida, and probably the eastern part of Alabama. Now, when you're talking about the Midwest, when we talk about Detroit, Cleveland, Gary, Indiana, Chicago and Milwaukee, a lot of our grandparents there, in particular my father and grandmother, is from Mississippi. And on my mother's side, her mother and my grandmother's father is from Kentucky. So you see where I'm going with this family. Then when you look at the West Coast, more than likely, if you ask the grandparents, the elders, where are they from? It'll be Louisiana, Arkansas, and parts of Mississippi. But a lot of people from the elders that's in California is from, like Texas, Louisiana. And I'm going to explain why. Because during World War II, there was a shortage of manpower. All the white boys was overseas fighting. And being as it was a world war, the steel mills, the auto industry, and the shipyards, but in particular the steel mills and the auto industry, they was building tanks. And the auto industry, General Motors and the Ford Motor Companies, was also building tanks, ammunition, armor, military vehicles. So that was a mecca, man, for some, young man down south to come up north and go straight into the auto industry, or for a young man in Mississippi to come work into the steel mills. That's right in Gary, Indiana. That's where a lot of black people settle. That's why Gary, Indiana is black like it is right now, is because of the great migration of the African American. Then when you go out west, the shipyards, we had to have ships during World War II. They was putting them out, as fast as they was making them. So you had a lot of men from Texas, impoverished areas of Texas and Louisiana that was hightailing it out west. You see what I'm saying? So when you look at Los Angeles, Watts, Compton, all of the elders, they started out in Texas or in Louisiana. Because I lived out in California for over 5 years. I started out in San Diego, I kicked it in Los Angeles, but most of my time in California was in the Bay Area, and along the Bay Area is a lot of shipyards, Los Angeles, San Diego, so that's where, a lot of black people is in these different states. But we all started out from down south. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. And a lot of young people, some of them do, but a lot of them really don't even understand or realize, their history. You know, they don't even take the time to ask grandma, you know, especially the ones that's over 65, you know, and in their 70s. Them is the ones you need to talk to. You can find out a whole lot of history about black people, how we got to this point, and everything else by talking to the elders. You know, and you people need to start listening to these elders out here, man. You know, because we dropping some real stuff to you. But anyway, that's my take on the Great Migration of the African American. You know, and also a lot of contributions that we have made. You know, don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. You know what I'm saying? But if you like this video, subscribe. And with that, I'm your man, The Real Deal, out of Gary, Indiana. Peace.